Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Hello. Hello. Bonjour. Buenos días. Hello. Kaixo. Hola. Tere. Привет. Bok. Ciao.
Dobar dan.
As you can see, we are practicing saying hello in many different EMEA languages. But the fun fact that we wanted to tell you is about our Dublin office. It's the most international office of Google globally. And why is this fun fact relevant to our today's live stream? Is simply because the majority of our speakers who are joining us today at the Mobile UX Marathon live stream number 3 are based in Dublin office. My name is Anna. I will be your host today. Also, will be presenting a few things for you. This is Rebecca. She works on my team.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca. I'm a user experience specialist here in Dublin.
Yeah, so Rebecca will help us today to moderate the live stream discussion. And also you will see her next week at the live stream on Google Analytics for UX and measured success. And now moving on to our next speakers. So we have today again with us Lena Hansen joining from Stockholm. Hello, Lena.
Hi, everyone.
And yeah, also direct connection just from Dublin with Soumya and Louise. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Great. So today's webinar is on the CRO maturity model, organizational excellence, and qualitative methods of UX. Yeah, we did combine a lot of things in once, and we hope that by the end of the day, you will be clear on how these things really work together and how these things are really crucial for you. But let's jump just straight away to the content, and this is our agenda for today. We will just do a quick recap of the Mobile UX Marathon, what's really going on. We will actually start with a few questions we didn't have time to take it last time, and then we will do a recap of the homework videos. And we have today with us Louise and Soumya to do a recap of their own videos. And yeah, after that, we will speak about things such as mindset and why it's really important to create great UX and have, really proper CRO processes in place in your organization. So yeah, welcome back to the Mobile UX Marathon. This is our third live stream, halfway through, right? Half marathon is done. So yeah, today we'll speak about CRO maturity, organizational excellence. Next time it's the measurement. Every week it's different topics, different experts. Please provide feedback to us. We do, if you register on the website, we're going to send you feedback forms, also forms where you can submit questions before the live stream. Please submit your questions to us in advance. I can also tell you that absolutely all forms are already published on the website, so you can already watch all the pre-work videos and submit your questions to us so we can prepare and include them into our agenda. Yeah, so thank you so much for filling out feedback forms. We do read it all. So a few things from your last feedback. So can you please send the pre-work earlier? Done. Now we send the pre-work on Thursday, but again, all pre-work videos are available on the website and you can watch them at any time. You can also find them at the Conversions with Google YouTube channel. There is a separate playlist for that. Please include links to resources that you mentioned. We do try our best to expose the links on our slides. If anything is not clear, just write in the feedback form. We'll do our best to follow up, but in general, a lot of resources are also published on the Mobile UX Marathon website. Really good feedback on all case studies. Yeah, we do understand that this is really important, valuable content for you, and we try to include a few more case studies into our today's live stream on CRO maturity. More time for Q&A. We will hopefully address this feedback this time, and we will start from Q&A and finish with Q&A. So yeah, we do want to spend more time with Q&A as you do. Only retail examples, yeah, well, again, that was one of the first live streams with case studies, the last one. But this time we will have actually one case study from insurance, one case study from travel, and in the upcoming live streams, just dial in, we will have more. Maybe you can start local meetups. Thank you for this amazing idea. We will discuss it internally, how every region wants to leverage this initiative. Also, maybe at the end of the live stream, open question selection for the next live stream. Feel free to type any question in the chat. Well, we would probably prefer to take at the live stream questions that are related to the topic that we discussed today. But we also can collect these questions. We are collecting these questions for the upcoming live streams as well. And again, all forms are on the website. Put questions on the slides. It's kind of difficult because we can't promise we will answer them all. Yeah, but let's see how it works. Today we have half of the questions on the slide, actually. And yeah, the most popular ideas that you decided to test on your websites out of all the A/B test recommendations that we discussed with you the last time were displaying value proposition at every stage of the funnel, showing search suggestions when user has no matching suggestions, matching results, and limiting exit points when user is already in the form or already in the checkout. Thank you so much for your feedback. You can still provide us more feedback at any point of time. And yeah, as promised, let's start with questions from the live stream. Some of the questions that we thought are really, really good, super relevant to our pre-work videos, Lena's CRO course, but we did not have time to take them last time. So I'm just going to read them all one by one, and let's see who is up to take this one. So the first one is on the infinite scroll or pagination. So there were a few comments on like, could you please deep dive into this topic a little bit more and give any more thoughts on that? So if any of the speakers wants to take that.
Yeah, I can take that one. So first, it's a really, really good question. I think for mobile, it's something that people discuss an awful lot about, like what is the best practice. I think the best research that I have seen would actually suggest it's a combination of different types. And the reason being is that, for example, infinite scroll can actually have a negative impact on the user experience. But if you combine infinite scroll with a load more CTA, overall the experience is greatly enhanced. There's a really, really good quote from Christian Holst. He's from Smashing Magazine, and they've done a very intensive research study, which took over a year to do, where they looked into the benefits of infinite scroll, pagination, and load more, and how that impacted the user. And I suppose the best summary that he made was, I'm just going to quote it, our usability test sessions found that load more buttons combined with lazy load were a superior implementation, resulting in more seamless user experience. And we found that infinite scrolling can be downright harmful to usability, in particular for search results on mobile. So I think taking from that, the best kind of combination would be a combination of the two of them. But it's a very, very good question, and it can be difficult. I would always recommend testing to see how your users react to both. But from this study, it seems to be a combination of both that actually work best.
Yeah, thank you so much, Louise. So the next question that we have, like if anybody else from speakers wants to add anything, we can move on. If not, we can move on to the next question. So it's actually about the combination of text and visuals that we discussed a few times. So that what people say is basically that for categories, for top-level categories, it's advised to use both the copy and the images to state what the user can expect, and this is kind of a standard, how people say. But the payment icons on the checkout is you generally will only see an icon, and those icons are not always clear on which method it represents. So doesn't the same rule apply here at the checkout stage, where it's best to display an image and text when showing payments icons? So just anybody wants to take that one?
I can take that one.
Yeah.
You'd like. So I think the answer is yes. I think ideally you would always have your icon with your text underneath it. But what you might find is that at the beginning of a user journey, the payment options are not top of mind to the user at that point. So you might find that they just use icons to demonstrate security and options and so on. But as you get closer to completing that conversion, it's more important at that stage to have both the text and the icon. Something else that can be really useful is to have, when the user hovers over an icon, for the text to show up then to highlight what that payment option might be. But I think in short, the answer is yes. It's always best to have a combination of the two.
Thank you, Louise. Lena, did you want to add something to that?
No, brilliant answer. Loved it.
Great.
Moving
on. Next one to the last one on UX best practices, and then we jump to the qualitative methods and CRO. So hi team, when watching the pre-live stream videos, Anna mentioned that should avoid urgency because some users will be put off by it and won't complete the purchase. But Lena in the CRO course that sprinkle urgency. So how do you approach this to get the best out of both Lena's and Anna? So it's not like exactly Lena's and Anna approach. It's more that we were kind of talking about a little bit different things, right? So Lena's examples were around the copy that you can, I don't know, maybe put on the product listing pages. And then I was talking about the copy on the call to actions, right? So I think all in all, the answer here is like meeting the users where they are in their journey. So really providing them the message that they are ready to see, right? So and the call to actions here, like they have to be really descriptive. So regarding call to actions, the users should be very, very clear on what is really going to happen next. If I think the example that this question is referring to is like about book a room versus check availability. Well, this is actually check availability, what's going to happen next. I'm not going to yet book the room, right, if I click that button. However, the urgency messaging to just support product promotion helps you to highlight the relevant options and to help users make a choice. Lena, do you want to?
Yeah, so just one thing to add there. So I hope you've seen the CRO course and looked through the episode on value proposition. There we talk about different behavior types. And what I'm seeing is that methodical people who are more into comparing, they want to take their time in making a decision, they get quite stressed by urgency. While spontaneous people and competitive people just bite on that immediately and can really bring a high uplifting conversion rate. So I would say that A/B test to make sure that your target audience isn't primarily methodical and they will not like you having urgency. So the A/B test will show you that, and also really think about if there's a way to design urgency so it doesn't become too pushy. There are some ways of making it elegant and really fit to your brand.
Great. Thank you, Lena. So that is it with questions on UX best practices. Please, from now on, in the live chat, only post questions on the CRO and the qualitative methods, because that's what we're going to take now. However, again, we are taking notes of absolutely all questions that you sent to us, and maybe like the ones on the US best practices that we did not cover yet, and we do have a few more of them. We will try to cover in the rest of the live streams, maybe one by one in all of them. So on this note, I'm just going to now go into the actual content and recap. So we'll do a quick recap of pre-work videos. And the first one, Louise will present herself on the CRO maturity model framework and quantitative and qualitative methods in CRO.
Cool. So just to quickly summarize, so my first video was on the CRO maturity framework. And the reason that we created this was we found that at times clients could find it difficult to identify areas for potential growth. within the organization with regards to CRO. So what should they be adapting? How should they be measuring the effort that they're working towards? So this CRO maturity framework is there to help identify where you might fit within that framework, and then show you the opportunity for growth within that. Additionally to that, something that we would often get asked is around qualitative and quantitative methods, and which methods should you be adapting. And what we found again was that this framework really helped to, I suppose, caption the types of methods that would be relevant based on where you sit again within that framework. So if you have limited resources and limited budgets, the more advanced qualitative and quantitative research methods might not best suit you, and you might not get the best results from it. So the idea here is that this maturity framework will help you identify where you fit within the framework and where your opportunity for growth is, so that you can maximize the output that you're getting from your efforts.
Great, thank you, Louise. So the next two videos that we shared with you in the pre-work were on one of the design sprints and one on user research. So on design sprints, Emily shared with you some key principles about design sprint methodology, and just may I remind you, it's in general a methodology on applying design thinking methods to solving any business problem. You can do design sprint on strategy, you can do design sprint on processes, you can do design sprint on UI optimization, and it's really up to you how you want to use that methodology. And in her video, Emily specifically went through examples on how you can apply design sprints and maybe run 1 day or 2 days, really short ones, to optimize your mobile user experience. And the last video is on user research, and I'm now just handing this over to Soumya so she presents it herself. Hi, Soumya.
Thanks, Anna. Hello, everyone. I hope you had a chance to look at the video, which talks about the 6 steps to accomplish UX research. As many of you know, this is not the only method through which you can do user research. There are so many different ways you could do this. But our objective with this video was to actually equip you with some really quick 6 simple steps through which you could do a usability study. And the video literally gives you like the different steps one by one that will help you to get through a very quick process as soon as possible to get your usability test done. So we start from something as simple as, what is your business question? How could you transform that to your research question? And then from there, how do you go about selecting your participants for your study? How do you build your tasks for your study? And then how do you go about recruiting these users? What types of different tasks could you have? And then at the end, we also look at some of the ways in which you could summarize the results that you find from these studies. And again, the broader point is that studying users and understanding their needs is one of the very, very first steps towards building great products. So we hope the UX testing really takes us closer to that goal.
Thank you so much, Soumya. So we do hope you found these videos inspirational and practical. And today we are going to really look into different case studies, how different companies were doing user research and design sprints and all of these amazing things. And we basically united all these topics under one key theme, which is called mindset, right? So one of the pre-submitted questions which actually came at the first live stream, I don't remember which session was that, I think it was EMEA, that was really good. What mindset do we need to have to create great UX? And hopefully today, at the end of my presentation, you will be able to understand how mindset is really connecting all these things together. So in order to answer these questions, I want to break it down into key 3 things. So the first one here is to have a great mindset within your organization to do good UX and great CRO. It's to be curious about your audience, to get, I don't know, better understanding of problems, better understanding of what's going on, better understanding of your user. The second one is learn how to get feedback. And here I mean product feedback, right? So you don't take things personally. And then the last thing is the whole company has to work together. And this is a response to the stakeholders piece, stakeholder management and working together. So let's start from the first one, being curious about your audience. And here we can tell that user research is actually helps you to go really deep into understanding the key problems on the page, key things that are important for the user. And this is where it's really important that user research voice in your organization is heard at all stages of product development. And this is where the constant feedback loop with user researchers is going to help. Are we going the right direction? Do people still like our products? Is this the right solution for them? And now I'm going to give the floor to Soumya, and she is going to present two amazing case studies from Google on how we leveraged Google, the user research to improve Google products. Soumya?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So as you've heard from all of the speakers today, and also from all of our webinars in the past, we've talked about so many different ways in which you could do user research, lots of different best practices and tips, but it is really important to put all of these to use, right? So we really want to inspire you to do all of these by presenting our own case studies. And then these are examples from our own research that we've been doing at Google. And the first one that I have on my list is a case study about Google job search. And I'm sure many of you have had a chance to hear about this, or at least have tried it in the past. And this is basically the way we fundamentally want to change the way people search for jobs. Like, searching for job is such an important experience as part of everybody's life, and I'm sure everybody has done this at some point of time. The first thing anybody would do who's looking for a job is to go to Google and search for the job. So we wanted to make that experience extremely easy and pleasant and useful for the user. And for that reason, we actually went about understanding this whole user journey around job search. And this is not just for searching jobs on Google, but searching for jobs anywhere in the world across any company, literally. So we've gone ahead and developed what is called as Google Job Search, and the amount of user experience studies that we've done behind the scenes actually help us understand the psyche behind how users are actually going about searching. Things such as distance from where they live, the types of different options they have in terms of whether it's a full-time job or a part-time job. So all of these different factors play an important role for the user. So this actually helped us to build what is now an automated way of searching for your jobs, which is where we try to recommend to you, based on your search, the types of jobs that you're likely to be interested in. So to be able to make that recommendations, and then also for users to trust our recommendations, we'll need to have a fundamental understanding of what the user is expecting of the job search process. So that is a case study on Google Job Search, and we also have some links there which you could probably review at a later point of time to learn more. The next case study that I have is actually from the NBU market, which is where we typically call this as the next billion set of users coming online. It's interesting to notice the kind of behaviors or attitudes that are so different from some of the other markets which we've studied in the past. So it is important to also cater to these different types of users and redesign our products to solve for their problems. So one example that I have out there is a picture of a group of youngsters traveling on a train. As you can see, they're commuting, and they're also trying to share something over their phones. This is actually a picture that was taken by our user experience researcher. And what's going on here is people have created their own hotspots, and they're trying to share content. And they're doing so because internet is so expensive. So if just one person downloads the content, they're better off sharing it via Bluetooth or a hotspot rather than everybody having to stream it on their own. So this particular action actually triggered what is now a new feature called as nearby sharing, where the feature actually is on the phone itself, which allows you to simulate this whole process. And it's so easy for the user to actually absorb and use this feature rather than having to build a workaround. So again, a great example of how observing users can help influence design. Over to you, Anna. That's all I have for the case studies.
Thank you so much, Soumya. Yeah, I do like both these case studies, and I would encourage our audience to follow the links and also to read those, because they really show how, again, the voice of UX research can influence launch of new features, improving the functionality and many other things. And specifically for the last case study for designing for the offline, I actually would like to remind everyone that it's very actually relevant for designing for mobile web, because now you can design your offline functionality if you implement the progressive web app technology on your mobile website. And this case study is a really great example on how you can turn the offline state of your user into the advantage for your business, right? So you're introducing new functionality, you engage users while the website is offline, and that's how you basically turn it to the advantage. So that this is the case study by Google, but you can now go and think how offline experience may look for you. And do make sure you dial into our live stream on modern web technology, progressive web apps, AMP, and many other technologies that we will have on June 11. Now moving on to the next thing, and it's learn how to get feedback. And again, this is all about don't take things personally. Here I'm going to stay very high level because we're gonna have few more live streams on the data. But in general, what I wanted to speak here about is also the mindset problem. One of the reasons why people do make mistakes when they look into both, qualitative and quantitative data is that we are all human beings. And this is what people do. They want to prove their own ideas work, their variant wins, and they want to see positive outcome from A/B tests. And even highly trained statisticians make mistakes when they look into A/B test results because they want to see their variant wins. Or in the qualitative research, there is even this sort of a problem, a challenge called researcher bias. And you really need to be aware of that one if you want to be a good UX researcher. The point, this is not the right approach, and you need to be very well aware of your own biases. You need to learn how to celebrate mistakes, celebrate fail A/B tests, because it was actually a good idea to go and do these things to check and to see what really works and what doesn't for your business or for your audience. So the point of conversion rate optimization is to learn and not to win. You need to invest into your own knowledge of the subject matter, whether that's analytics, statistics, user research, or product management, but try the same to be really humble, try to understand how your own bias is affecting the process, and learn how to deal with failures on a constant basis. Because in order to become this kind of super person, you need to change your own mindset and also the mindset of people around you, right? So which brings us to the next piece is the whole company has to work together and has to share this mindset and mentality. And this, again, I do want to speak about the way how we can achieve this kind of efficient, fast, and very good collaboration. And of course, I'm going to talk about design sprints because we see this as one of the ways how you can achieve this kind of environment. And may I remind you that, again, design sprints, it's kind of a mix of methods from psychology, strategy, and user research. And the first concept of design sprints, the one on the left, is about getting feedback fast at the very early stage before you get into production. And it allows you to fail cheaply and in low fidelity. And the next concept of and the next concept of divergent and convergent thinking, it actually allows everybody to be in the room, everybody to brainstorm, and everybody to agree on things. So that's how you develop a shared understanding of what the vision for the product should be. So if you use design sprints, you basically allow stakeholders from all range of disciplines to participate in the process. And this is where UX is going to speak about what is desirable, business is going to speak about what is profitable, and she's going to speak what is feasible. And it will allow to dramatically decrease the number of time we spend on communicating these things in real life and increase the number of ideas that we come up with when we come all together. So I am excited to share with you one case study that we've done with OneLife. It's just a few months ago, we hosted a design sprint in South Africa, and we took everybody through some best practices of landing page design, and then we asked companies to prototype in the afternoon. Again, it was a one-day sprint, and in the video, Emily has described how you can basically condense the sprint to 1 day or 2 days. So this one was really short, straight to the point. And then OneLife, this was an insurance company, they attended the sprint and they brought their agency along with an in-house team. And within that 1 day, they redesigned they designed a new prototype that had a very short and concise form with key call to action above the fold. They also implemented value proposition as a list of 2 bullet points, as you can see, complemented with nice icons. So again, a combination of text and visuals. They improved image layout. They fixed the header on the top of the page and fixed the main call to action in it. And they said, well, they were very well aware of these best practices on landing page design, because we did discuss this with them before. But what they also said is they've never really got a chance to sit down and to agree that these changes are necessary. So it was a really good way for them to get away from work, from their day-to-day process, to focus on one problem, to bring cross-functional team, and to develop a solution for that. So as you can see, the new prototype has kind of killed the original version, plus 65% conversions on that page. And the design sprint itself allowed them to get together and to get to agree on these changes, that these changes are necessary, and we have to launch the tests. So yeah, that is about design thinking, but also what we want to cover a bit when we say the whole company has to work together is the agile. And Louise has mentioned the processes, how important the processes attribute is when you are trying to improve the CRO, like CRO maturity for your company. And here we can see clearly the necessity, the need to switch companies from waterfall to agile to make the whole company work this way, not only IT department. And agile methods, agile culture, it allows you to learn fast and to be able to change the direction quickly if needed. And we don't want to really go deep into agile, as it can be another separate webinar devoted just to that. But we do want to present you another amazing case study on organizational change. So here's a case study from our colleagues in France. They worked for 2 years along with the Club Med team. And Club Med is a leading provider of premium packaged holidays in France. They wanted to improve their mobile website experience. And specifically for them, the challenge was that Asia, and specifically China, was a very big business, but it was quite difficult to reach, as it's a mobile first market, and sometimes not even just mobile first, but mobile only, right? And they decided to basically work on this challenge. So what they did, they set up different teams dedicated just to web performance. And the interesting thing is that these teams were cross-functional. They had different focus areas. For example, one of them will be focusing on checkout, one will be focusing on something else. So they did this all in buckets. But all in all, these were cross-functional teams. And in each of those, there were stakeholders representing different departments, and they were all working towards the same goals, same KPIs. And this change allowed them to be more agile and to work closer to developers. So before, teams were a little bit more siloed, and now it was like the process was very transparent. So again, our colleagues in France, they shared the UX best practices with the Club Med team. They did regular feedback session. The Club Med team also did the user testing their end, and they set up this constant A/B testing loop to check all the hypotheses. So they also worked on speed, right? In the first live stream, we did cover the importance of speed. So this piece also worked really well for them. So all in all, as a result of this transformational change and cross-functional effort, they became more mature, and it fueled mobile revenue growth for them about 80% of the uplift. And so in order to really adopt this kind of culture of innovation by doing design sprints, the agile culture by doing developer sprints, you need one of the stakeholders to be in, and this is the C-level, right? So they have to be, what we see from our experience, they have to be really one of the first people who are advocates of this kind of culture, this mindset, and they have to be your strongest collaborator on this front. So we're happy to share with you, no, not the case study, but the CEO mobile checklist, which you can actually download now and share with your boss, or I don't know, if you are the CEO, if we have any CEOs here, just have a read and make sure you constantly go through these things on a weekly basis, that you set up the processes in your company for that you declare mobile a top priority, you have cross-functional teams, you do both quantitative and qualitative methods. So it's kind of, again, the CRO maturity model that Louise has shared with you in the pre-recorded videos, but that is something that it's a nice downloadable PDF that you can share with your boss. And I want to conclude this section with just a quote. A quote about product excellence is a culture. It's not another checklist that we can share with you, right? So excellence is a shared responsibility. It's all about taking pride in your work in order to be successful, pride of contributing to great product, to great company. And we need to make sure it's built into heart of everything that we do. So I will again repeat this: UX is not just the job of UX designers. UX is kind of everyone's job. In fact, the whole business needs to be involved, and product excellence should be in the culture. It's about shared responsibility. So yeah, just to conclude this with the 3 points, what mindset we need to have to create a good UX. I'm not going to repeat myself, but I just want to say that processes are nothing without the culture and the right mindset. Having this mindset is central, and if you have that, it hardly matters what tools, what processes you're using, but this kind of agile and innovation mindset make things come out right. And if you don't have that, you should declare this as a first priority for you. That is it on the content. Again, we try to make it very short and focus mostly on case studies and the things that we believe are really crucial for you. So now we are good to proceed to the Q&A part, and Rebecca is going to share with us a few questions. Yeah.
Hi, everybody again. Okay, so we'll start with our Q&A session, and we are going to start with some of our pre-submitted questions that were submitted on the website. So we'll start with a question that says, how can we get our stakeholders to listen to why UX is important? Who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to do that one. Yeah, so it's a very interesting question. Again, when you say stakeholders and specifically PMs, based on my experience, I've come across mainly two broad categories of stakeholders. So the ones who are very quantitatively minded, so they would really listen in if you can present numbers to them. So convincing metrics. So in that case, doing large scale studies like surveys or data analysis to prove the numbers would really help such PMs. And the second category of PMs or stakeholders would be the ones who would kind of listen to stories or narratives. So using an empathy kind of an exercise, like building the empathy for the user, can work really well in this case. So in that case, maybe a qualitative study, and also getting the PMs to sit along with you and observe some of these studies as the users go through that process can actually help you build that empathy for the user. So that would be my suggestion. So really try to see and understand what does your stakeholder really incline to, and use that approach accordingly.
Like to add anything?
Sorry, we were on mute. Yeah, thank you so much, Soumya. Yeah, I would actually like to add on the design sprints. Like from my experience of running design sprints, it's also very, very hard to bring PMs and Eng, well, maybe not PMs, but Eng to design sprints. And whenever people with, I know, engineering background hear the word design, they would be like, oh, like, why don't designers do that and we just do our own things? But it's really important, again, to explain that this is all about getting yourself together, applying just some methodology, right? It's about applying design thinking methodology and solving the right problems that are relevant for everyone, for absolutely all stakeholders. And with design sprints, it's also important not to do them really too often, because there is so-called like sprint fatigue, which does exist sometimes when people are too much excited about doing sprints and they do them too often. So you just do them, you choose wisely the time periods when you do them. You do them only when you have certain challenges and problems, and you set up the expectations with all stakeholders in advance on why it's really important to be in there for all like 2 days, 5 days. Yeah.
Great.
I would just add one thing there. So in my experiences, it all comes down to revenue. So either get access to Google Analytics or make friends with someone in the analytics team, so that if you see that you have an A/B test that gives an uplift of perhaps only 1%, then you can take that number, you can show, you can calculate the amount of traffic you get and what revenue transactions that will give in a year, so that you show the uplift and what that will bring to the actual wallet of the company. In my experience, that is the numbers that a lot of stakeholders listen to. So make nice with the analytics team.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lina. Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, Anna. All great feedback. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. So that is, what metrics should we look into when it comes to qualitative methods, and what tools can you recommend to use? Who would like to take this one?
I can take that one again. Qualitative methods are always very interesting, and also the reason why you do qualitative methods could be very different as opposed to why you say you would look at, say, data analysis or quantitative method. So in the case of qualitative methods, my experience has been that even using things such as anecdotes from the qualitative study can be really, really powerful. So really the quotes from the data. But even beyond that, if you really want to look at it and evaluate and identify some metrics, I would suggest taking a more quant type of approach towards the qualitative data that you have, which is basically coding and looking for themes and looking for mentions of those themes as users have talked about a certain approach. And if you're doing things like usability tests with users, then even looking at the time it takes for a user to go from point A to point B, like, the times for the user journey, and even looking at things like click-throughs and heat maps of where the user actually hovering or clicking, and also things such as eye tracking can be really useful in some cases if you want to know where most of the eyeballs are looking at. So all of these are, again, different ways to kind of look at your qualitative data. Again, boils down to what is the objective for you from the study, and the approach that you would take would also be dictated to a great extent by that. And in terms of tools, there are a variety of different tools. Again, depends on the type of study you want to do. If you're looking for something like a usability study, then using, there are many tools in the industry, like say user Zoom or user testing and a similar kind of tools, which will allow you to configure these user journeys and then be able to go through these different tasks. You could also be using a non-tool-based approach, something like a diary study. And again, there are apps to actually help you to do diary studies these days. So again, really dictated by the type of approach you want to take within the qualitative process.
Could I add to that one?
Sure.
As well. Another one that I found to be really, really useful is the perception of the test. So asking the user at the end, well, how did you feel that went? And an awful lot of the time, and I don't know if this is the same in your experience, an awful lot of the time you find that they're very positive and complimentary of the test, but when you're watching them and you're observing them, their face is actually saying something quite different. So they could be looking confused or frustrated or a bit puzzled by some of the things that they're doing, but that might contradict what their perception of how that was is interpreted. So what the user say they feel and what they actually feel can quite often be quite different. So it's really useful sometimes to actually get them to quantify how they felt the experience was, their perception of that was, versus what you actually felt that was. And also the number of errors that a user might make in a test. So for example, if there's a particular journey that you'd like the user to interact with, you could have, if they were to do X, Y, and Z, that could be considered an error. So again, kind of adding the value it really helps you quantify the number of errors made on version A versus version B. It can really help you understand some of the potential challenges there. And yeah, I suppose for me, like observing the user is so different to what they kind of say to you. So I think getting that feedback from them while also noting it yourself from your own observation can be really, really key.
Louise, that's brilliant. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question. So the question is, who should be in charge of the optimization process? Who would like to take this one?
Yeah, so I can go in there. So different companies that I've been working with have set this up in different ways. First of all, we do need a designer and a developer. So that is the first cross-functional setup that you would require. Yes, it is possible to do A/B tests with an editor that would not require code. Personally, I would not recommend that, because it's always better to have total control of the test, and that would require checking the code. So yeah, designer, developer, first off. Besides that, if it's within the product team or within the web team, that for me is completely up to the company. The only thing is that I would really recommend that you have one person from the analytics team, one person within stakeholders, if that's the e-commerce manager or if the digital marketing manager, whoever can give you buy-in and can fight for you, and one person within the marketing team as well. If you have this small group of people meeting once a week, for instance, or once every second week, then you will get so much different insights, you will get buy-in, and the different departments will get a lot of interest in what you're doing.
Great. Thanks so much, Lena. That's super. Okay, so would anybody else like to add anything to that? Okay, we'll keep going. So what would be the next question here that we have is, so it says, in the video, you've mentioned value proposition, call to action, and visuals. How would you prioritize best UX practices in a cross-functional team of developers, marketers, and executives with different priorities? Would you weigh more on the quantitative results from an A/B test or the voice of the team who has information about the user?
So maybe we can dive in there. So I would always prioritize the A/B test first, because data is feelings. Data is voices. Data is opinions from the users. It's just structured in tables. So if you start looking into data, you can actually see people's feelings there and their needs. So if you have a department within the company who is really good at understanding the customer, perhaps it's a help center or something like that, that's really valuable. It's really good insights to have, but they will most likely only be talking to a specific section of your customers. It will be with the ones who are voicing their opinions and stuff like that. So data will show all opinions, all your customers and their feelings and needs. So yeah, it might be that we are Google and we are super data driven, but I would recommend to prioritize the results from the A/B test.
And I also think like this kind of, again, the data and the results of the user research, they kind of answer still different questions. And even Somi in her video, she was saying that, okay, when you look into data, it gives you facts and it just shows you what's going on. And then the user research shows you why. So it's kind of, yeah, absolutely. You use the A/B test results just to understand whether this is the right change or not to implement, to go for. But the reasons behind the even testing this change should be the user testing. So I wouldn't say it's like either or. It's a higher priority, lower priority. It's just like how this thing should really work together.
Completely agree. It's in different phases of the CRO process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you, Lina and Anna. Okay, so let's take a question from the live chat. Okay, so we have a question here from Rashi. The question is, how do you design a CRO model for the business 5 years down the line or 5 years in the future, keeping the value proposition constant but progressive? I would like to take this one.
I can maybe start, and if anybody else wants to add something on top of that. So Louise, in her videos, she is actually providing really good action plan of the company of any maturity level. So your first goal is just to identify where you are in these buckets, right? So whether you're nascent, emergent, connected, multi-moment. And then, depending on where you are, she says where you need to invest into your resources, right? So that you progress to the next level. So I would start with first identifying again where you are at your CRO maturity progression. And according to Louis' videos, again, to see what is the next step for me. Is that the process? Is that the resources? Is that the C-level mindset? Is that something else? Yeah, that I'm not sure what was about the keeping the value proposition, but I think it's just still, how do I write the CRO maturity model plan for 5 years from now, and to keep my organization growing and growing and growing. And even the multi-moment clients, they can still grow, right? They are like the complex you become as an organization, the more challenges you actually get again. And we as Google, as a very really large company, can share lots of those things. And even in the first live stream when Shane presented the feedback on our website, we do struggle with these things constantly, and we have a lot of processes and limitations. So yeah, we feel your pain, and we feel the pain of I think the company of any stage of the CRO maturity. Does anybody want to add anything?
I can try. I'm not 100% sure I've fully grasped this question. And if we haven't, please do write in the comments, because we are looking at them and we really want to help as much as possible. What I would say is that your value proposition should continue to grow as your site grows and as your CRO maturity grows. And the reason being is that you should be gathering more data, both qualitative and quantitative, on your user, and therefore understanding what is driving them. And the value proposition itself should be growing and progressing as the user progresses through your site. So the value proposition when the user lands shouldn't be the same value proposition that the user sees as they progress through. So it's really important that as they're progressing through your site, you're giving them more context and more of an explanation as to why they should go with you versus a competitor. And that's something that can always be refined and fed into over time. And especially when you're doing the user tests, understanding what the core drivers are for the user, take that and give that back into the value prop. Do an A/B test and see how it does impact the user. So it's something that you should be continuously feeding into in your site. And it's really important that it's not stagnant, and that as the user progresses through, the value prop moves with them, and you're always encouraging them. And at every point, even when you get to the payment stage, say why they should be with you, who you're using, security, use your security badges and that type of thing. Again, if we haven't answered this, please do put more into your comments because we are looking at them. I want to make sure we're answering them fully for you.
Sorry, yeah. Now we're on mute.
Great. Thank you, Anna and Louise. Yes, if any questions haven't been quite answered 100%, please do let us know. We're keeping an eye on the live chat, so please do let us know, and we'll go back to it. So let's keep going with some other questions. So here we have a question, and it says, how do we start with user testing if our resources are limited?
I can take that one. Again, a very interesting question and something that a lot of us kind of have that constraint. So there are several different ways you could do it. And obviously, you could do greater volume of research if you had greater resources to your disposal. But in the event you don't have something like that, then there are so many different ways you can kind of try and address that. One of them would be to try to be a bit scrappy in your approach, but still be able to, try and get as much input as possible, as opposed to having to do in-person interviews, like bringing in users to your lab and all of that. You could potentially go to the place where your user kind of, is. So let's say if you're studying university students or you're studying teachers, then actually setting up like a small research desk in a school or in a cafe or in the university can actually help, where you go there and do an intercept study with the passersby. And this should be a very scrappy but a very powerful approach, where you can just show up at the place and then do some quick studies. Another alternative is also for you to kind of use, few friends or colleagues to quickly test and go through the different items that you have on your, website for testing, and ask them to share the feedback. And you could be thoughtful about choosing who these friends are or colleagues are, because if they're on the same team as you are, they're going to be having the equal types of bias. So maybe say somebody from the HR team or somebody from the finance team who's still available to kind of talk to you, but does not have a lot of idea about how the user experience works. So these are some ways you could achieve all of this. But if you want to go one step further, you could also try to explore things, such as usability tools that are open source. There are so many different tools that are available for even things like cart sorting, where you can, use these open source tools to be able to try and test. Again, you still have to spend some effort to find those participants for your study, but at least you don't have to buy a license to a very expensive tool. So those would be some of my suggestions.
Can I add to that one as well? I think the key takeaway and a lot of the perceptions that clients can have is that in order to do user testing, they have to have access to a lab, and they have to have people to do the interviews, and they have to have the questions already and pre-approved and so on. But there is nothing more powerful than going outside and grabbing users and getting feedback. And if you're nervous about approaching user testing and all that it can entail, the best thing that you can do is just go outside and just get people and just start asking questions. And even when you get really desperate, sometimes you mightn't get the best demographic, but the feedback that you might get is super valuable. Once I remember we were doing user testing, we were really desperate and we just needed feedback, and the demographic that came in were super technical. But some of the things that these guys actually pulled up where we didn't even spot them. So they definitely were not the right demographic. But one of the guys, the feedback that we got from him was far more than we could have anticipated. So what I would say to you is doing it and just getting out there, regardless of budget and resources, just get out and do it. It's so important. Don't wait for budget and don't wait for all of that. And again, looking at the maturity model, if you're comparing yourself to a super mature client who has C-level buy-in, they have the budget and they have the resources, it's going to take you an awful lot longer to get to that position. So do look at where you currently are and look at what is, the potential within your current organization. So realistically, are you going to get a large budget? Are you going to get access to labs in the next 6 months? If the answer is no, then it's not a don't go ahead and do it. It's okay, well, how do we do it in a scrappy way? And I think just the core takeaway from that is just get out and just do it, and don't worry about getting into those labs and doing it in the way that you might see a more mature client doing it, because the feedback that you tend to get is really valuable, especially at the early stages, because you really do want to fail fast if it's going to fail at all.
Yeah, that also reminds me that another approach that we often take, particularly when we are super strapped for time, is to do a quick secondary research. And what I mean by that is actually to rely on other people's research. So there are so many tools like, say Google Scholar, or also tons of resources on the web where people have done very similar studies.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to study a very similar user behavior, then relying on a very recent study, like there are so many market reports out there, basing off your gut feel rather than out of gut feel, just to look at these secondary research sources would also be a good option.
And it's free. And don't forget, every business has something that they can offer. So if you don't have budget, you might be able to offer your service, free of charge for a half an hour, or, even bringing people into your office could be enough of a, enticing offering to them. So just think outside the box. There is no limitations, and it's something that is available to everybody, regardless of your budget. I think we've sold it enough.
Great, thank you both. We'll take one last question from the live chat from Suresh. And the question is,
I think it's the syndrome cure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies, there was a sound that we weren't sure what it was, but it's okay. Okay, so the question is, if we take a matrix and go for 5 interviews, so a qualitative approach, still customers feel they need more interviews. This is the mindset from customers, especially when their hypothesis is breaking. Any suggestions?
Well, one could show the study from Norman Group about how 85% of all usability problems are discovered by 5 users. If you also start to structure it so that you have, for instance, write up the problems that each visitor sees, and then just color in columns if it's shown by 2 users, 3 users, 4 users, and so on, then you will start to see that it doesn't really give you more insights if you add on 10 more users. So that's a data-driven way to show them that, yeah, you kind of get the same results with fewer users.
Great, thank you, Lena.
Yeah, can't agree more with Lena, and I think it's a really great example that our audience actually gives us on the mindset, right? That even whoever we help to run this user research, they do want to prove their own ideas when that it kind of works. This is what we see all over the place. I think it's always important just to do this kind of basic check on yourself, on your own assumptions and hypotheses and biases. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. Okay, those are all the questions we have time for today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining. May I remind you that just the next week we have a live stream on measuring success, choosing the right KPI, and we will look into this on example on our own tool on Google Analytics. Do watch the videos by Nupur on what kind of top reports to look for in Google Analytics to see your mobile excellence. And yeah, so next week is going to be all about challenges of measurement, challenges of setting the right KPI, a little bit of stakeholders piece as well. But do join us. I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you so much, Lena.
Thank you.
And yes, thanks so much, Louise and Sonia. Unfortunately, they had a fire alarm in their building. We've always been afraid that this is going to happen at some point at the live stream webinar, and now it happens. So this is real.
Now it's done.
Yeah, no. So thanks so much for joining today. Don't forget we have a hashtag to share your feedback about us in the social media. My name is Anna. There was Rebecca with me today. You will see her at the next live stream. See you in 1 week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.